This episode of Moist Meter brought to you by GODSLAP. Issue 3 is out right now at godslapbook.com. You can find links below in the description. Go check it out.
Initiating moisture.
Welcome to the Moist Meter. Today we're taking a look at Dead Island 2. Man, what a weird experience this was. I'm just going to be honest and upfront right away. You know, I'm just going to go ahead and pull down my pants and give you everything I've got right off rip. There is only two things in this game I think are good. One is the combat, and the combat's good, not great. Like, it's very safe. The combat itself isn't anything unique or anything that you're going to be, like, losing your mind over, fucking falling out of your chair because you're so blown away by the quality of the combat, but it is good and it's serviceable. But what is actually very impressive is the gore mechanics here. It feels like this is where all 10 years of development went, is the gore here. If you just start punching a zombie, different pieces of them are going to fly off. You'll just keep chopping up different parts of their meat. Intestines will leak out, and they're also physics-based intestines, so if they're standing up, they'll just fall down and like pool on the floor. If you start punching their stomach when they're already dead, they'll kind of like loosely leak out. It's all super impressive. The gore mechanics in this game are probably some of the best I've ever seen in gaming. Like, up there with like Left 4 Dead. It is so good. They put so much care into that. So maiming zombies, which is a core mechanic of the gameplay, is always satisfying because it's always different. It kept the gameplay fresh, and it really felt like there was just millions of ways of chewing up and spitting out zombies, just fucking eviscerating them, and you'd never see the same death animation or death gore twice. It was very, very, very impressive. But aside from those two things, everything else in this game is just not good. I know that Dead Island 2 was trapped in development hell for about a decade, and it fucking feels like it. This actually feels like someone unearthed the game back from 2013. All of it fits right at home back then. It's the most generic, average zombie game I think has ever released. And for some people, that's a totally fine thing because it's a comfort food. You know exactly what you're getting when you order the Dead Island dish. You're getting a generic zombie experience, but it has that extra seasoning of some very, very beautiful gore. But everything else is just, you know, the calories you're expecting to consume with a zombie game. But that's not a sin, that's not a crime, but you know what is a crime? How fucking awful the writing is. The writing in this game is actually worse than Saints Row. I'm just going to say it. It is worse than the new Saints Row. I played as Danny because I liked the perks she comes with. Her intrinsic abilities I thought were fun, and I could make a fun build around them, but it was not worth the headache of having to listen to her speak. Every single line she had was miserable. At no point does Danny or any of the other characters in this cast stop ripping the worst one-liners you've ever heard. Unironically dropping references that were dated even in 2013 with "get to the choppa," which they use like 9 fucking times. It doesn't stop. It is unrelenting, unapologetic cringe, and it's not even charming in a goofy way. It's just grating and annoying. The writing is unbearable, and the story is so fucking bad. There is one absolutely unforgivable atrocity this game commits that not even the Lord could forgive, and that's the ending. I'm not going to get into spoilers, but I'm going to tell you it just ends abruptly. When the game rolled credits, I was stunned. I sat there on stream for an additional 30 seconds just trying to actually process that that it ended, that it wasn't just some kind of fake out thing. The credits started rolling and I thought it was going to be like another stupid joke, but it wasn't. The game just ends. It felt like we were just at the halfway point. Like, it actually felt like we had just reached the halfway point of the game. There was still so much to do, and it's not even a cliffhanger. The game just ends with, like, one thing saying, "Oh, so you're doing this?" And she's like, "Yep, I'm doing that." And then it just ends. It's so mind-bogglingly awful. And I think what happened is, it became very clear to me that they really just wanted to get this game out. Come hell or high water, it didn't matter. Quality be damned, fuck it, I don't care if there's no ending, they wanted to ship it. They needed to get this off of their books, they needed to get this, zit cleared off their face, they had to ship Dead Island 2, and it didn't matter if they didn't have an ending. So that's exactly what they did. Everything just fucking full stop ends. It's not a cliffhanger, it's not suspenseful, it is just awful. They close the curtains while things are still happening, and nothing gets resolved. Pretty much everything you do in this game is worthless because there's no ending. It's just terrible. The story and the writing are by far the worst parts of this game. And it's even worse because the characters don't shut the fuck up ever. So you're constantly inundated with the worst lines you'll ever hear. But let me get to the things that I like. Like I said, the combat. I do like the combat. It's nothing to write home about, but it is fun. There's a decent variety of weapons, and there's a lot of fun mods that you can play around with. So you're doing all the standard generic zombie shit, where you're collecting a lot of materials in the open world to bring back to a workbench to upgrade your weapons. There's a lot of variety to them, and I do think you could probably make some pretty interesting builds out of it. I thought it was all pretty standard stuff, though there were some standouts, especially when it came to like force mods. I ended up really liking a giant fucking sledgehammer and just blasting things with a shockwave, because Danny, when she's using a heavy attack, gets a shockwave. And so I started to play into that, whereas initially I was running with faster weapons to try and like dismember enemies, but it wasn't doing a lot of damage. I was mainly just going up there and fucking tickling them, blowing a raspberry on their tummies, because a lot of the enemies are very spongy in this game, so making a fast attack build to try and maim and crit wasn't working for me, so I eventually switched to more of just huge impact stuff. But the point is, there's a lot of build paths you can choose, and there's also another system in here with perk cards. So there's these cards that you collect in the world, they give you perks, and you can outfit your character with different perks. They come with abilities such as like a drop kick, a flying kick, a shockwave slam, and then there's perks that'll augment those in certain ways to play into how you want to run it. Of course, drop kicking is very fucking strong, so for a while I was doing a drop kick focus build. Also, all of the skills do significantly more damage than any of the weapons, really. The guns were highly underwhelming. Even some of the best guns I was getting kind of sucked asshole, but that doesn't matter because the guns aren't the focal point. It also wasn't very satisfying when you're ADSing. For some reason, the ADSing was very slow and clunky, but again, the guns aren't where the emphasis is for the gameplay. I do think the melee was fun, albeit pretty slow at times. One thing I think that was a huge hindrance to melee combat is they had this insistence on always using slow-mo. There is more slow-mo in this game than in a 9-year-old's Windows Movie Maker project that they uploaded to YouTube 15 years ago. There is slow-mo anytime you're in a fight. Anytime you kill an enemy, there's going to be like fucking 4 seconds of slow-mo. It is excessive and unnecessary. Now, one other cool thing about the combat that I do appreciate is they had some really cool mechanics with fuel cans as well as water cans. So you can pour fuel around, and it's all physics-based as well. Like, the attention to detail on things like fluid mechanics and gore blows everything else in this game out of the water. Everything else is like really rudimentary standard stuff, but then when it comes to fluid mechanics and gore, they went hog wild. Like, they pulled no punches. So there's fluid mechanics here, so when you're pouring water, you can like wash away blood if you want, you can wash away fire, and it's all really interesting, but you can also play around with it in terms of combat by covering an enemy in water and then throwing like a curveball shuriken electrified at them. Curveballs are basically like your consumables, like a Molotov cocktail or, like I mentioned, an electrified shuriken. And since they're covered in water, they'll blow up into an electric explosion, which will start stunning them as well as other enemies around them. And the fuel can, you imagine what you can do with that. You can pour fuel on the ground, light it on fire, catch people on fire, blow shit up. That was cool. I really appreciated that. That added another layer of depth to everything, and they really have that throughout all combat arenas, so you can always be using it. It's not, scarce or anything. But yeah, overall, gameplay is exactly what you're expecting with some nice flavor to it. It's fun. I did have a good time with it, and I did get kind of into trying to find the optimal build for a sledgehammer and try and make that really pop for me. So I enjoyed that. I enjoyed the gore, and pretty much nothing else. I also think the setting fucking sucks. In here, it is the most cookie cutter settings ever. You go to sewers, you're on these streets of Beverly Hills, everything looks exactly the same, there's no character to any of the locations at all, it all just fucking blends together and it's not interesting. There's also no enemy variety, so the final boss is actually just a normal enemy that you've encountered 50 times throughout the game. Like, they don't have anything interesting with their enemies, not even their boss fights, of which there's only a few. It's literally just the same enemies you've fought a million times before, but with a name this time. It's so underwhelming. But what makes it even more underwhelming is how dead everything feels in the game. There is absolutely no zombies in it. There is no zombies in the zombie game. When you're going from point A to point B and wandering around the world, you don't encounter zombies at all. Maybe you'll encounter like a pack of 3 or 4, but that's it. It is completely fucking barren. So you don't even get the fun of a sandbox to go around and just chop zombies to pieces. You just don't. You're literally walking around a fucking ghost town. Another thing that was weird, and maybe this one's just me, but the hit detection on the zombies seems super janky. Not like landing hits on them, but them landing hits on you. It completely lacked any oomph or like any impact at all, so I would never even know if I was getting hit. It felt like they almost forgot to program, like, you getting hit by zombies. I would just notice my health was going down and my screen was getting red, but other than that, I had no fucking indication that I was even getting attacked. And sometimes the zombies, attacks didn't even look like they came close to hitting me, yet I'd notice my health would go down from it. But it's not that big of an issue because in this game, death doesn't even really have much of a penalty, so taking a death isn't the worst thing in the world. And especially if you're just going crazy with it and just trying out stupid builds and stupid ideas with weapons. Now, it is worth mentioning the game is co-op. I played it solo, but I know this game is much better co-op. Every game is better co-op. So I'm sure if you're playing with a friend, you'll probably have more fun with it than I did. But yeah, overall, just not a very good game. Plugging Dead Island 2 into the moist meter, I'm going to give it a 55%. I didn't hate my time with it, but it really did feel dated, and it's a shame. 10 years in development and delivering a very lukewarm dish is always rough. But yeah, anyway, that's about it. So yep, as most of you know, we started our own comic book series called GODSLAP. Everyone who's read GODSLAP so far has unanimously agreed that it's the best comic ever produced, and GODSLAP is well on its way to becoming the biggest name in all of comics, overthrowing Marvel within the next 5 years, according to recent scientific projections that I'm pulling out of my ass. It's a passion project created by myself, Jackson, Danny, and Matt, and we brought in an industry veteran named Aubrey Sitterson to help write it with us, and we're extremely proud of what we've created. Issue 1 and 2 are already out, and Issue 3 came out today, as of right now. Issue 3 is available at GODSLAPbook.com, and per usual, this is the standard cover, but we also have 2 limited edition variants, which will only exist until they're sold out, and then they'll never be reprinted. So they're available at GODSLAPbook.com.